Did you know that the provincial government of British Columbia recently revealed plans to introduce legislation in the spring of 2022 requiring a buyer cooling off period for the purchase of all resale and newly built homes and condos? In this video, I'm going to tell you what that could mean for the Whistler real estate market and for you. Hi guys, Dean Linnell here with the Linnell Group at the Whistler Real Estate Company, and if you love Whistler local tips and beautiful mountain properties, be sure to subscribe because today we're talking about the upcoming cooling off period for buyers. The BC government recently announced its intent to introduce a legislation in spring 2022 that will mandate a cooling off period for buyers of all residential real estate. But what's a cooling off period and how might it impact the Whistler real estate market? A cooling off period, also known as a rescission period, gives buyers the right to withdraw from a purchase agreement within a specified period of time after an offer is accepted. Without a cooling off period, if a buyer wishes to terminate a contract for reasons other than those laid out within the terms and conditions of the contract, they would need to negotiate with the seller and would typically face significant financial penalties or legal ramifications. It's important to note that the government's resources only mention the cooling off period applying to buyers. There's no mention of it applying to sellers as well. You imagine if that happened. BC already has a mandatory cooling off period for pre-sale developments. Buyers of strata properties under construction have a 7-day period from the time they receive a copy of a signed purchase contract or acknowledge receiving a disclosure statement where they're allowed to withdraw their offer. While BC will be the first Canadian jurisdiction to legislate cooling off periods for all residential real estate sales, other countries can serve as case studies for us. For example, in Australia, most states have some sort of a cooling off period. So here are some highlights. For Aussie states that have implemented the policy, the period lasts between 2 and 5 business days. They also have exemptions for mandatory cooling off periods, including but not limited to instances when the home is sold by auction, which happens frequently in Australia, or if the buyer simply waives the cooling off period. Some Australian states do not have penalties for terminating the contract within the cooling off period, while others have penalties ranging from $100 up to 0.25% of the purchase price. Penalties are intended to deter potential buyers from making offers without an intent to purchase, which can cause issues for the potential seller. So, if a 0.25% penalty were to be implemented in BC using an average Whistler condo price of $1.2 million, for example, that would result in a $3,000 penalty. Existing research suggests that a cooling off period is unlikely to have a significant impact on consumers' decisions. Research by Deakin University found that when 60 consumers were faced with a 48-hour cooling off period, none of them changed their minds when faced with a better alternative. The reason behind this lack of change is called loss aversion. The cost of losing something tends to be greater than making equivalent gains. For example, this means that the feeling of losing $100 tends to be greater than the feeling of gaining $100. Within real estate, this means that once a consumer has purchased a house, they're unlikely to change their mind and make use of a cooling off period to terminate the contract, even if given comparable options at a slightly lower cost. So, while the government's goal of a cooling off period is increased transparency, it's worth considering the potential impact the policy could have on the Whistler local housing affordability crisis. If implemented, more buyers would be likely to bid on more properties, potentially causing an increase in housing prices. In BC's and also Whistler's extremely low supply conditions, this could increase prices by an additional 2 to 3%, according to initial research conducted by the BC Real Estate Association. BC's real estate regulator, the BC Financial Services Authority, or the BCFSA, is consulting stakeholders on the appropriate length of a cooling off period and whether or not to include penalties for exercising the right to rescission. Click on up to the right for a full explanation of how Phase 2 properties work in Whistler. My name is Dean Linnell with the Linnell Group at the Whistler Real Estate Company, and my contact details are in the description below. We'll see you guys in the next video.